What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 20 of Dynasty Decisions. We're 20 deep in these things. If you guys don't know the drill, if you want a question answered, you can go ahead and do so by following us on Twitter, DMing us on there. You can join the Discord in the description as well and DM us that way as well. And this is Dynasty Decisions. If you guys have trade questions, if you have rookie pick questions, if you have any questions relating to Dynasty Fantasy Football, we answer them on here. Quick announcement. We want to announce that we're probably only going to be doing these once a week going forward. So this will probably be the last double up of the off season. We'll definitely still be doing them as much as you guys want us to do them. As many questions as we get, we'll definitely fit them in. But with redraft season approaching, we do have to focus a little bit more on redraft content because we have training camps and preseason games happening. We have a football game next Thursday on TV. And I know it's the Hall of Fame game, but it is football.
Hey, my team's playing, baby. Let's fucking go. Game against the Steelers. And, we'll see what Garrett Gilbert can probably do because obviously Dak Prescott's still dealing with that shoulder. But, yeah, I'm pumped, man. If you guys are watching and you aren't excited for football, what are you doing? Start getting excited for football. It is literally a week away. Like, what is going on here? But, yeah, I'm excited. I'm pumped. And as Corey mentioned, once a week because obviously we want to focus on redraft. But regardless, we're here for you, answering your favorite Dynasty questions, helping you guys attain those championships. So I'm doing well. And before we get into anything in the video, I can hit the intro. All right, so let's start off with the first team in the video. And Corey, you can take it away with the Biss's 12-team Superflex PPR Dynasty team.
Yep, so he sent his team in. It is a 12-team Superflex PPR league. He said, would like to know your guys' thoughts and the team I just drafted, and if you guys think there are any moves I should make to contend this year. So looking at his team, it is a Superflex league, and he's got Lamar, Tua, Watson, Winston, and Locke, which is pretty solid, especially considering once Watson comes back, you're going to have a great quarterback core there. Barkley, Montgomery, David Johnson, and some fodder there. We got A.J. Brown, Michael Thomas, Kenny Golladay, Corey Davis, Will Fuller, and some fodder. T.J. Hawkinson at tight end, and it looks like he has all of his draft picks. So overall, when you look at this team, do you think he can contend this year, yes or no? I would say it's going to be a little tough given that Michael Thomas injury definitely dings your receiving core.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. To me, this kind of looks like a middle of the table type of team, like a team that's probably could sneak into the 5 or 6 spot. But yeah, losing Michael Thomas is a big blow to your wide receiver core. And in general, outside of Barkley and Montgomery, I don't mind David Johnson, but again, this is Dynasty, and that's not a guy I want to be my Dynasty RB3 for the long term. But this could probably be a team that sneaks into the playoffs, but I just don't view it as a full-on contender this year with Watson and the ambiguity behind Thomas's injury.
Yeah, this one's like a gauge mid-season type of situation to me, because if things break right, you absolutely could win the championship this year, I think. I think if Thomas is only out like 3 weeks or something and he comes back and he's Michael Thomas and Barkley, all this hoopla we're hearing about his workload being limited is a bunch of bullshit, and he's Saquon Barkley when he comes back, you could win the championship this year because you have some true difference-making pieces on your team. If Saquon's healthy, you have him, you have Lamar, you have A.J. Brown, Michael Thomas, T.J. Hawkinson. All those guys can be difference makers for you, but I think given the position that you're in, you have a little bit of risk on this team. So I would just kind of see what happens as you go into the season. If you're down a couple games because Barkley isn't on the field, Michael Thomas still hasn't come back yet, then I'd be looking to move some of your older pieces. And to me, like where do you look immediately if that happens?
My main look obviously is going to be at the running back position because, again, outside of those 3, you don't really have a startable option. Like Devin Singletary is at best, an 8 points you're happy with type of guy. Sony Michel, Jeff Wilson, Damian Williams. Like there's nothing there that inspires me. That would be the type of move I would look for because you're pretty you got decent depth at the wide receiver position. You got about 6 guys you're comfortable with there, so you're fine. Tight end, obviously T.J. Hawkinson and that quarterback quad, if you will. So this is just a team I'd see how it's doing midseason and make adjustments based on that because there aren't really any true moves that stand out to me as of right now.
Yeah, but to me, I think Barkley, Michael Thomas, Kenny Golladay are names that I would probably float out there. Potentially even Lamar Jackson too, if he's absolutely snapping midseason. You're going to get Tua back, or you're going to get Watson back at some point. Jameis Winston, if he's holding down the starting job in New Orleans, could be a piece that you move. for a contending team if they lose one of their quarterbacks. So you have some flexibility, but I would say this is probably a wait and see type approach. I think if things break right, you absolutely could compete. It sounds like you have all your draft picks too, so it's not like you're, without a first round pick next year. You could always just recoup a running back in the draft next year. And if you were to add an Isaiah Spiller or something to this running back core, or any of the running backs coming up in this class, then suddenly you might have a contending team in 2022.
Yep, I absolutely agree. So anything else you want to add, or can we move on to Kwacka's team?
No, we can move on to Kwacka's team, none off on Twitter. So 10 team, 1 quarterback league. You guys can see his team on the screen there. Zach Wilson, Kirk Cousins, most notably at quarterback. He's got Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, Darrell Henderson, Chase Edmonds, notably at running back. He also has Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, and Trace Sermon on his taxi squad. So very deep running back core for Kwacka here. He's got Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Cortland Sutton, Darnell Mooney, Mecole Hardman, and Jacoby Myers, and then Darren Waller at tight end. Initially, and this is not something we usually say a lot, I mean, you might be willing to move a running back for a wide receiver in this situation, right? Because outside of Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper, and again, we already know Cooper's dealing with some foot and ankle issues right now, I might look to get another stud receiver if I can with one of your running backs that you have.
Yeah, like if you could flip, I don't know about what your pick situation is. Did he mention anything about them?
No, he didn't mention what his pick situation is. So I'm just going to assume that he has all of his picks.
I'll say that's fine. Yeah, if you could even flip, like I don't mind Trey Sermon, but if you could flip Sermon and maybe your pick and somebody's willing to give you like Brandon Ayuk, that'd be a type of move I'd be looking to do. Again, you're exchanging 49ers here, but I do think Brandon Ayuk is being completely slept on by the community. We talked about it pre-show, but he was legitimately an elite player last year. Like legitimately, reception perception had him in the 88th percentile against man, 86th percentile against press. If you can acquire that type of young wide receiver to complement what you have with the Devontae Adams, Cooper, Sutton, and Mooney, in my opinion, that would really anchor your wide receiver core. And your running backs are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, Darrell Henderson should be fine this year, Chase Edmonds, and then, of course, those 2 young rookies, in addition to Sermon with Etienne and Williams. So
yeah, exactly. And he actually did send me his picks. He has every pick in the next couple of years, except he has somebody else's second round pick instead of his own, and he doesn't have his third next year. So he's pretty much got all of his picks. So I would say overall, you're in a good position. I mean, like you might look at your starting lineup because I think a lot of fantasy players do this and you're like, oh, I got to start Kirk Cousins or Zach Wilson. But I think that's just fine. We talked about on the strength of schedule show that Kirk Cousins has a very easy schedule to start the season. So he's the guy that you could roll in and week out for the first couple weeks of the season once you see what you got in Zach Wilson. And if you need to make a move at that point, it's a 1 quarterback league. It shouldn't be very hard to trade for a great quarterback. If you have, 7 running backs that are all snapping off, you could move a Chase Edmonds if he's the starter in Arizona for a young quarterback that might be a little bit more of an upside play, like a Justin Fields or something. If Edmonds is, playing exceptionally well in Arizona. So I think overall you're in a good position to compete. I think running back is definitely the position you want to be deep in a dynasty league, and you are absolutely deep at that position.
Yep, absolutely, especially in a 10-teamer. So we can move on to the next team unless you have anything else to add.
Nope, that's good.
All right, we can move on to Michael Brock's half PPR 1 quarterback league. So you guys can see the team on the screen, but Corey, you can read it off as well.
Yeah, so it's a half PPR dynasty league. It looks like just pretty standard starting rosters. He's got Dak Prescott as a starting quarterback, also has Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins, CEH, Kareem Hunt, Javonte Williams, Raheem Mostert, James Robinson, and J.D. McKissick. Then he's got Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Robbie Anderson, Antonio Brown, Michael Gallup, Terrace Marshall, Nelson Aguilar, and then TJ Hawkinson and Tyler Higbee at tight end. So he said it's the second year in a 10-team league. Can he win? How can he improve? So overall, the glaring thing for me stands out is the high-end running back talent, like the lack of it, because we're not the biggest fans of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think the perception of most people is probably higher, especially in your league, on Clyde Edwards-Helaire than we view him. So if I were you, I would probably be looking to see what I can get for Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, I fully agree. Again, you could probably flip Helaire for ETN plus, and that would be a type of move I would do. Like, honestly, I have ETN straight up over Clyde.
You might be able to get one of the other second-year running backs straight up for Clyde. Like, you might be able to, someone might be willing to give you Swift or Gibson for Clyde because of the situation that Clyde is in. They might just be blinded by the fact that it's the Chiefs offense, right? Like, nobody can deny the fact that those 2 other running backs were better, like, football players than Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year. And we talk a lot about how to play Dynasty and stuff, but the bare minimum thing that you need to have to be successful in the NFL for a long time is talent. And that is my biggest question mark with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I don't have that question mark at all with DeAndre Swift or Antonio Gibson. So especially given the fact that you have Javonte Williams also, if you wanted to really kick this thing into high gear in 2022, I think trading for DeAndre Swift, if you can get him for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, would be a phenomenal move.
Yeah, like even like if you had to give up, like would you do right now TH and Terrace Marshall for DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, I probably would. I think you could get away. Speaking of another darling people overvalue too much, I think you could probably pair CEH and James Robinson and get DeAndre Swift.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the type. You could sell somebody on the fact that James Robinson might get traded for or something like that, which probably won't happen. And they'll eat it up and they'll trade him away. So that's probably the only move I'm looking to make. A quarterback, I mean, it's a one quarterback league and you have Dak Prescott and Ryan Tannehill. Like you're in fine shape. Like you can just stream matchups with those guys. Kirk Cousins, you don't even really need. If somebody was willing to give you something for Kirk Cousins, I might even sell him for some draft capital if you wanted to.
Yeah, if someone's willing to give you like a second round pick for Kirk Cousins in a one quarterback league, I'd do that instantly.
Yeah, exactly. And then a wide receiver, I have no complaints about your wide receiver core. You have two absolute studs, three absolute studs, in my opinion, with those top three guys. And then tight end, you guys probably know at this point how high I am on TJ Hawkinson, so I have no complaints there. And then Tyler Higbee's a fine backup tight end to have as well. He's a guy that you could potentially shop for a young piece and a draft pick. If somebody's looking for a startable tight end this year, you might be able to get Cole Kmet plus for Tyler Higbee.
Yep, absolutely agree. So we can move on to the next team, and that's going to be from Harry Clayton, a 14-team dynasty, and it's changing to Superflex in 2023. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the team. You guys can see it on the screen, though. I'm just going to read it off as well. Quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, and Daniel Jones. Running backs, Zach Moss, headlines. Wide receiver, Juju, Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy. Tight end, TJ Hawkinson. In terms of picks, he would have the 101, 108, 203, 213, and 303. And he actually told me that he actually has already had his rookie draft, and he turned those picks into 101 being Najee Harris, 108 being Jalen Waddle. He somehow stole Rashad Bateman at the 203, got De'Ami Brown at the 212, and Elijah Mitchell at the 3-3. So this is in a 14-team league. You absolutely loaded up your weak spots in that draft. And in general, you're adding those young core or young core of draft picks to what your roster already is. Absolutely phenomenal drafting. And in terms of his other picks, 3 picks in 2022 and no picks in 2023 pretty much. So overall, what are your first thoughts about what he did in the draft, combating his roster and his overall situation?
Yeah, and the nice thing about the position he's in, right, is that he doesn't really have a lot of strong points on his roster outside of like his marquee pieces are Ayuk, Herbert, Judy, and TJ Hawkinson, right, for his rebuild, and probably Baker Mayfield as well. So you're looking basically just to add talent at the point you're at. And I think you did a great job scooping up value where you saw it. With De'Ami Brown at the back of the second round, a 14-teamer, that's great value. Rashad Bateman anywhere outside the first round is a great value in my opinion. So you did a great job scooping up value. And I think he also notes with his picks too, he expects 2 of them to be early in 2022. One is his, obviously, and he's a rebuilding team. And I guess another rebuilding team sent him their first round pick as well. So overall, he's got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds of the 2022 draft next year, and some young pieces now from this draft class to build around.
Absolutely beautiful young wide receiver core when you take it in now. Obviously, Juju is going to be a name that we're going to say to sell after, so don't worry. But aside from that, Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, and Rashad Bateman is absolutely where you want to be at when you're acquiring draft capital and you're building around youth. So overall, he also has a few trades here that he did. First trade, he gave up the boy Saquon Barkley, Cooper Kupp, and Hunter Henry. In return, got Juju, Jerry Jeudy, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Kelly, the 102 and the 213. So if you're transitioning it, the 102 he ended up flipping into the next deal we'll talk about. And the 213, again, I mentioned he ended up getting De'Ami Brown. Yeah. So overall, what's your thoughts on that deal and how do you think he made out here?
I'm just like looking over the 102 deal, the next one that he did. So the 102, we can just equate it to one of those top 3 guys, right? Usually it's a pretty simple way of doing it. I think when you take Jerry Jeudy, TJ Hawkinson, De'Ami Brown in the 102, that's enough for me to move off of Saquon Barkley, I think pretty comfortably. And I think
easily,
Juju Smith-Schuster and like the other pieces, they're like, Cooper Kupp's a valuable piece, but you're getting in a rebuilding team, and I'm assuming the reason you made this trade was that you recognized that you couldn't compete. You sold Saquon Barkley, you sold Cooper Kupp, and you were able to get some very young pieces to build around. Aside from maybe Juju Smith-Schuster, who I don't really believe in long term, I still think you got some, and he still has trade value, so it's not like he's like a useless piece to have. But Judy Hawkinson, an early first round pick, De'Ami Brown, like those are some great pieces to pick up in that deal. So I definitely like that deal for you.
Yep, I absolutely agree. So we can move on to the next deal. He basically gave up the 102 that he just acquired, as well as the 103 that he had, as well as a 2023 first and a 2023 second in exchange for the 101, the 108, and two 2022 first. So what's your initial thought when looking at this deal?
Okay, so real quick, this is kind of just like a philosophy thing. I really love the idea of doing this, right? Because I'm guessing the reason he was able to pull this deal off is because somebody's super high on the 2023 class, right? Like that's probably why they were willing to part with two 2022 firsts in order to get a 2023 first. So when you can do that, we got to remember that this 2022 class is happening before the 2023 class. So those picks are going to go up in value regardless of how bad the class is, right? And people, I've heard a number of people way smarter than me in terms of Devy and college football talk up this 2022 class. Like, don't sleep on this class. Like, it's going to be good. And rookie fever is going to hit regardless of how, subpar the class might be. So those first, you might be able to flip for a 2023 first during the rookie draft, right? Because you might be on the board at 109 and somebody wants to trade up for, John Mechie or something like that, and they're willing to give you a 2023 first and a player or something in order to do that. Yeah. It's very easy to manipulate the board when this draft is happening first. So I really like that deal for you. Like, yeah, it probably sucks giving up two of Chase, Pitts, Harris, but you get one of them, and then you also get Waddle. The 108, which ended up being
Waddle.
Which ended up being Jalen Waddle. So that's a pretty solid deal for you.
So basically, if you're equating it, you'd look at it like Waddle in the first for I don't know, let's say Pitts in a second, which like you also moved up to the 101, you got your preference, and you also combated a 2023 first into a 2022 first. So
and the 101 was Harris, right?
Yeah. So overall, I think that's a fine trade, and I like your aspect of here, especially that you already had a 2022 first, really being able to control the board with those three picks, especially if two of them, as you mentioned, end up being early. So overall, I like the move for you. And finally, the next deal. He traded away Austin Eckler and in return got Sterling Shepard, a 2020 first and a 2020 second, which ended up actually being from the championship winner. So he ended up basically shipping Eckler in exchange for Shepard, Moss, and Justin Herbert. And this league is changing to a superflex in 2023. Man, getting Justin Herbert at 214 absolutely saved this deal for you.
The Justin Herbert side, yeah, definitely saved you. Otherwise, you probably would have gotten bent over in this deal, but the fact that by the time your team is ready to compete, it's going to be a super flex league and Justin Herbert's going to have top 10 value. Like that's a great trade for you, but you were bailed out by Justin Herbert being a stud.
Yep, absolutely. So he also adds, what moves should you make at this point in my rebuild, if any? And do you think I can be competitive in a couple years with the picks I have? Can you evaluate some of the trades I mean? So we evaluated the trades in terms of where you're at. I think you've done a phenomenal job in a rebuild of recouping young, appreciating assets. And I do think by 2023, once this league switches to a super flex, you can contend. The only move, obviously, that stands out to me, man, see what you can get for Juju. See what you can get for Juju. And we're going to say that every single time we see Juju on someone's team. We always say, see what you can get for Juju, because there's going to be someone out there that values him because he was a 1,400-yard producer at a 22-year-old age. See what you can get.
Yeah, I would say Daniel Jones also stands out to me. If somebody's like, oh, he's a young quarterback, we're switching to a super flex in 2023.
May not be starting by then.
I don't think Daniel Jones can be starting quarterback by then. So if you can sell somebody on the fact that he's a young quarterback who just got a big upgrade in his weapons core, maybe you go to the Kenny Golladay owner and be like, oh, you want the stack of Kenny Golladay and Daniel Jones for the next 5 years? Like, just sell them a bullshit sandwich and see if they buy it. Because I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be a part of your future of your team. So I would try and get rid of him for whatever you can get him for.
Yep, absolutely. So we can move on to the next team here, and that's going to be from Cody Johnsen, a 10-team PPR tight end premium superflex league. So take it away with the starting lineup that he has here.
Yeah, so he's got a starting quarterback core of Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, and Deshaun Watson. That obviously will do him well in the future. He's got CMC, DeAndre Swift, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, and some fodder. CeeDee Lamb, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore, Terrace Marshall, and some fodder. And then he's got Irv Smith, Trey McKitty, Pat Freiermuth in a tight end premium, as we mentioned. And then he's got all of his picks in each of the next three drafts. As we mentioned, it's a 10-team PPR tight end premium super flex. He said he just completed his first dynasty draft. Do you think this is a win now type of team? And if not, what moves or trades should we be looking to make?
For the record, anytime I see CMC on a team, I'm always going to try to win now because, again, you're going to get more out of him than you would from a trade value standpoint. Listen, he is by far the best non-quarterback dynasty.
That's Julio too, which is also the same exact situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, this is going to be a team I want to contend with. Now, you do have kind of like, I don't want to say a mismatch, but you do have some young appreciating assets in conjunction with the win now assets. What I would do initially if I want to compete is, look, I love the long-term, the youth, the athleticism of Irv Smith Jr. If you could move Irv Smith in a pick and upgrade to, let's say, a TJ Hawkinson, let's say a Mark Andrews, that type of player, I think this is a team that could really make a splash this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even if you could sell somebody on the youth factor, if somebody's looking to rebuild and you could get Tyler Higbee and like another like wide receiver for your team to just really reinforce that win now type of strategy, I wouldn't mind doing something like that too, because I do think you have your youth factor covered in tight end, being that you have Pat Freiermuth, who they spent a second round pick on, and Trey McKitty, who I'm not really a big believer in Trey McKitty, but he was a third round pick, so he could be valuable in the future. So overall, I think you're in a pretty good spot. Like you have some very premium assets, right, to be competing. DeAndre Swift, CMC, Dak Prescott, the three quarterbacks that you have basically, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones. Like these guys are going to really help you compete. My only real concern with your team is depth at the skill positions. You don't really have, outside of Damian Harris, like a consistent guy that if Swift, CMC gets hurt, you could plug into your running back core. And at wide receiver, it's really those top three guys and some young guys that I like Terrace Marshall, but he's not necessarily somebody that I could rely on this year if somebody got hurt. Like if Julio or Godwin gets hurt, I think I would want to have a guy like Jarvis Landry or Antonio Brown or Tyler Boyd or something on my roster just that I could throw into my lineup.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But other than that, yeah, like a couple moves you have to make here to show up your depth in your tight end spot. But I do think this is a team that can make an impact this year.
Yep.
All right, we can move on to the next team. That's going to be from Austin Keathley, a 12-team, one quarterback, full PPR league. So take it away with his roster. And I believe he also has some trades here we can go over.
Yeah, so when we look at his roster, it's 12-team, one quarterback, full PPR. He's got Patrick Mahomes. This is one quarterback. It's pretty much all you need. He's got Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Myles Gaskin, and A.J. Dillon, most notably at running back with also Leonard Fournette there. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Terrace Marshall, De'Ami Brown, DJ Chark at wide receiver. That's pretty solid there. And then tight end, he's got Tyler Higbee and Eric Ebron. Also his defenses and kickers. Not going to worry about that. Looks like he has every pick in the 2022 draft except his second rounder. He has 2 2023 first. So let's look over his trades that he did. And he told me that I don't know how the hell he pulled this straight off, but he got Justin Jefferson for Robert Woods. And what he told me, and I was like, I literally sent him in all caps, like, you got Jefferson for Woods? Like, how the hell did you do that? And he basically said he did it like mid-season, like before anybody knew what Jefferson could be.
Yeah, that is just an absolute steal. Looking back, we're talking about a guy who's arguably a top, 15 to 20 overall asset in Dynasty, maybe even higher, honestly, and a consensus top 4 Dynasty wide receiver for Robert Woods, who, yeah, he's a fine player, but you're talking about a 29-year-old wide receiver too. Like, no, like easily, yeah, like
that's a very smash your side of that trade. So I don't think we need to spend too much time on that. And again, this is a one quarterback league. His next trade that he pulled off, he got a 2023 first in exchange for Tua and a 2022 second. And Tua's a fine young quarterback, but it's a one quarterback league. You already have Patrick Mahomes. I'm totally fine going out and acquiring a 2023 first in exchange for Tua.
Easy move. So we can go on to the next deal, and you ended up getting A.J. Dillon in a 2021 third for 2 2021 seconds. And I think this is a fine trade, honestly. Like, you were talking about A.J. Dillon, a very talented player. I mean, this is probably one of easily the best young handcuffs in the league. And again, if there's ever a period where Aaron Jones was out or Aaron Jones, for whatever reason, again, wasn't playing, like, A.J. Dillon could legitimately go for a first at that point.
Yeah, I totally agree. That, like, people underestimate how often running backs miss a couple games here and there too. So it provides you with some better depth than what you would have had. And I think the next trade also provides you with some more depth. And I think you recognize that you didn't have good running back depth and made some trades accordingly. So he also acquired Myles Gaskin and the 209 for Henry Ruggs, the 111 and the 304. So what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, I would say the best asset in that deal is probably the 111. But given his state of his running back core, Myles Gaskin in the 209. I like the 304 isn't very important. So I honestly just like willing to kind of shrug that part of the deal off. If it's Myles Gaskin in the 209 for Ruggs in the 111, I don't hate that value. I think if you were in a different situation, you weren't trying to compete, you were maybe a rebuilding team, I might take Ruggs in the 111 side, but the Gaskin in the 209 is still a fine trade there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like as a contender, like he helps shore up your running back position. I don't mind that move. However, though, if we're going off a contender view, I don't like this next deal. I genuinely don't. Like I get it that you can project top 3, but again, we can't say that with certainty. We can't say that that pick's going to be top 3. And even best case scenario, it is top 3. Are we even sure a one quarterback top 3 second round pick is over Gallup? Like I wouldn't take that at all. Like I think Michael Gallup, honestly, sorry to wreck on you because again, like I don't mean to sound like this, and maybe it's a little biased.
It's the only trade we're gonna bag on you for because I'm looking at the next 2 trades and you're fine.
Like Michael Gallup is an absolute stud that people don't want to recognize because people want to throw the stigma. Cowboys wide receiver 3. Yeah, when your wide receiver 3 is getting 100 targets, I think you can be fine with the fact that he's the wide receiver 3. So
right, and as we've talked about, the guy's a free agent after this year too. So you can even sell somebody, even if you don't want to keep him through his free agency, you could just sell him in March next year when he's in free agency, and somebody will be willing to pay for the lottery ticket that he gets signed to the Packers or something like that.
Yeah, and again, like if this was a super flex league, I wouldn't bag on you too hard. But because it's a one quarterback league, like that 2022 second, you're looking at probably like the 7th best wide receiver in the class this year, maybe. Like
yeah, it's not the highest value pick. And again, if that pick is not a top 3 pick, and we're talking more about a mid-second round pick, which is usually from the mind frame when you're dealing for second rounders and first rounders, you should think about it from a mid perspective, unless the team is starting Jake Luton at quarterback. You probably shouldn't be assuming picks are early.
Yep, absolutely agree. But again, Bush mentioned that's the only trade we're going to dog on you. Absolutely phenomenal next deal. And did you ask him in the DM how the hell he pulled this off?
I didn't ask him in the DM, and nobody likes Ronald Jones as much as I do. But the fact that you got Brandon Ayuk for Ronald Jones is just highway robbery. Like that is not even remotely close.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, I mentioned Brandon Ayuk earlier, but this is a legitimate top 20 dynasty wide receiver. I have not wide receiver 18 in redraft this year. Redraft. We're talking about a 22-year-old player and arguably one of the best schemes in the entire NFL. Kyle Shanahan knows how to scheme people open. And even if he doesn't need Kyle Shanahan to scheme him open, we're talking about an 88th percentile player against man, an 86th percentile player against
we're talking about a guy that was legitimately the second best in reception perception among all rookies, just behind Jefferson last year. Like between him and Lamb and a couple of the other guys, like they were like in the conversation for the second best rookie wide receiver season that we saw last year. And we can bag on Ayuk. Everybody was out last year, but at least he did it, right? At least he produced. He could have not produced like Michael Pittman Jr. or Henry Ruggs. And we could be like, well, he's still the number 1 in his offense, but Ayuk did it. He got the job done just like T. Higgins did, just like Justin Jefferson did.
It's not like he's Denzel Mims or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I really like that deal for you. And then DJ Chark for, I'm assuming that's Devontae Parker. And he said Josh's 2022 second. So I don't know who Josh is, but I'm assuming his second round pick is mid. Like I said, we usually want to assume that. And I think I would take DJ Chark by a landslide there.
Hey, I don't know who Josh is. Just the way you said that. Okay. Yeah, I do agree though. Yeah, like upgrading from Parker to Chark, especially on a win now team. I like the move.
Yeah, totally agree. And he also included who he drafted in his rookie draft. He got Najee Harris at the 101, no complaints there. Terrace Marshall at the 203 and a 1 quarterback is great value. I think he should not be even remotely in there. Speaking of great value, he got De'Ami Brown at the 308 in a 1 quarterback league. So who are you taking 15, like how many players went before De'Ami Brown in this rookie draft at the 308? Like 25 players, 28 players or something like that? That's like insane to me.
Yeah. No, well, literally at the end of the 3rd round, it'd be 36.
Yeah, so my math is completely off. I have an accounting degree. If you
30, he was literally what, the 31st or 32nd pick?
Yeah, like that's insane to me. You must have had like Chuba Hubbards and Ramondre Stevenson's going over him, which to me is just outlandish. Like that's great value on De'Ami Brown.
Yep, I absolutely agree. So overall, anything else you want to add, or can we move on to the next team from Hunter Chase?
No, we can move on to Hunter Chase's team.
And that would be a 10-team Superflex. You guys see the team on the screen. Quarterback, Josh Allen, Trey Lance, Fitzpatrick, Winston. Running backs, you got Derrick Henry, the king himself, Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Michael Carter. Wide receiver, McLaurin, Galladay, Deontay, Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, John Brown, Eskridge. And at tight end, you got Noah Fantastic, as he has it here, Logan Thomas, Higbee, and Freiermuth. Also has his first and third in 2022 and his second and third in 2023. It is questions. Just curious what you think. First time doing Dynasty, I have the best team or the second best. So what are your initial thoughts?
I would say that your team is probably one of the best. Given your running back core, you're going to get there. All three of those guys, like your top three guys, are ranked in my top 10, right? So like that's going to carry your team. You also have one of the best quarterbacks in Superflex in Josh Allen. You also have a quarterback that we're both very high on in Trey Lance. And then your wide receiver core, well, it's not like the greatest probably wide receiver core in your league. It's still very good. Like you still have Terry McLaurin, Kenny Golladay, Deontay, and then two rookie wide receivers that we both really like this year. So I think overall your team is very well-rounded. It's very, very deep too, especially at running back. You got Carter and Fournette and Hunt on your bench. Like I wouldn't even hate moving one of those running backs and trying to upgrade maybe from, if you take Golladay and Hunt and try and upgrade at wide receiver, I wouldn't hate doing something like that.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Yeah, that would be the one move I look at. But aside from that, he also has his few trades down here. He traded away Justin Herbert, Rondale Moore in a second, and in return got Derrick Henry and Trey Lance. Absolutely phenomenal move. Listen, I understand the Fugazi, everybody like, oh, well, like Derrick Henry, I don't want to acquire him because he's 27, because he's a run-first guy. I get that. And if you're a rebuilding team, I understand selling him. But in this team, the way you are, listen, Derrick Henry is probably a lock to be at minimum a top 6 running back this year and basically slightly downgraded. Like, as much as I love Justin Herbert, Trey Lance is not far behind him in my Dynasty rankings. Like, legitimately. You're probably talking about a tier, but even if, like, it's not that significant to me, and you're basically moving Rondale in a second for Derrick Henry in the process just to downgrade from Herbert to Lance, like, I'll do that instantly.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's a contending team. You're getting Derrick Henry. You're moving a receiver that neither of us really believe in too much with Rondale Moore because he's 5'7" and he runs only slants and bubble screens. And then you got a 2022 second, which, you know, again, if you assume that's mid to late, it's not exactly like the biggest deal in the world, especially given your team. I think you could properly assume it's going to be at least a mid-second round pick. And yeah, Justin Herbert's a great quarterback and he had a phenomenal rookie year, but he doesn't have the legs that Trey Lance has, right? And in fantasy, you get more points for running the ball than you do for throwing the ball. And Trey Lance legitimately has Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray level of rushing potential. And we've already talked about his weapons at length. Like, it's going to be very hard for Trey Lance to fail. If you guys are new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe if you are new to this channel. But you guys probably don't know that we have Trey Lance and over Trevor Lawrence straight up in our rookie rankings because we believe that much in the player, first of all, because he is a very talented prospect, and two, the situation that he's in, the coaching staff, the front office, the weapons around him, the protection in front of him. It's a very difficult situation to fail in, and again, he has the legs to boot. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I fully agree there. And the next two trades, I mean, Noah Fant for a 2023 first. He said it's not his favorite trade, but he was in the Rodgers hype. Listen, I'm fine with it. Noah Fant, still a 23-year-old young ascended player. You assume that pick's mid to late. Maybe you might want the pick looking at your tight end room, but again, I don't mind making this type of deal. Yeah, and Fant is definitely the type of tight end that could really pay off, right? Like if Fant hits, like he's going to be phenomenal because the athletic profile that he has, first round draft capital, like size, speed, athletic, like he's just a freak. So if they do get Deshaun Watson next offseason or Aaron Rodgers next offseason, you could either keep this guy and he could be a top 5, top 3 tight end in fantasy, or you could sell him and get the farm for him. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree there. And then the final deal here, like, okay, what are we doing here? A 2022 fourth for Fitzpatrick. Like, listen, the starting quarterback.
Dude, if Fitzpatrick gets off to a like decent start, you're talking about like a quarterback 15 to 20 start, you instantly make profit on this deal. Like you instantly get, like if you were wanting to flip him, let's say Jameis Winston ends up being the starter, Trey Lance starts early, and you're like, okay, you know what, I have a fourth quarterback here in Fitzpatrick who's producing that I don't need. You can instantly probably flip him into a 2022 second. Probably, yeah. Yeah, so
then you overall that second you traded away in the Herbert trade.
Yeah, so a phenomenal deal here. But anyways, anything else you want to add here? Can we move on to AJ Nardi?
No, you're good. You said it's his first time doing Dynasty. I think you're doing a great job.
Great start. Yeah, and dude, that running back depth is insane.
Yep.
Yeah, so we can move on to AJ Nardi, a.k.a. Ginger Rail from previous episodes. So this is an 8-team full PPR Superflex league. Starting lineup, again, you guys can see it's a one running back league. So one running back, 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers. Okay, whatever. You guys can see it on the screen. I'm kind of confused, but anyways, it's a one running back league. Keep that in mind. Overall team: Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, running back, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery, Darrell Henderson, Alex Madison. Wide receivers, you guys can see Jefferson, Brown, Chase, Moore, Evans, GG. Okay, yeah, that's absurd. Tight ends: Pitts, Troutman, and Cole Kmet. So what are your initial thoughts when looking at this team?
Yeah, and obviously the team's going to be good. It's an 8-team league, right? Like everybody's probably got a pretty good team. Overall, you want to be pretty much elite at every position if you want to compete in an 8-team league. And I would say at wide receiver, you are absolutely elite at that position. At running back, I would say you're probably elite at that position as well. Quarterback, you definitely could be elite once Trey Lance gets on the field. And it is a one quarterback league with a super flex like option by the sounds of it. Like that's kind of, it's got like a different set of rules, which is kind of cool. But overall, I think you definitely can compete with this team, especially if some of your young guys step up to the plate in their rookie year, like Lance, like Fields, like Wilson, like Pitts. You're definitely going to be a great spot to compete. But overall, even if you can't compete this year in 2022, you should be good to go.
Absolutely. And he labels this trade down that he made. He traded down from the 103 to the 106 and basically upgraded his 1206 to the 603. He's wondering how he did on this deal. Listen, you absolutely made out like a bandit here. I advocate for this all the time.
The 603 was Austin Eckler, too, if you see that listed on the screen.
So you basically traded, let's say, 103 and an 8-team super flex is
he got Darrell Henderson in the 13th round, Juju in the 11th round. So halfway in between Darrell Henderson and Juju of an asset in exchange for Austin Eckler, and Dalvin Cook was the 106. So what's the 103 in comparison to Dalvin Cook?
I don't know. What, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, like it's not that big of a drop off.
No.
The fact that Austin Eckler was available at the 603 is probably the most absurd thing I've ever heard.
8-team to be fair, but like still,
yeah. 903.
Yeah, like it's an 8-team to be fair, but yeah, like I fully agree. You made out like a bandit. You're adding that amount of running back talent in addition to probably one of the best young wide receiver cores I may have ever seen, like genuinely. And he also says, "Don't worry, I'm already shopping Juju." So that's a good start. But yeah, you are on a fantastic track here, and if you can sell Juju and maybe recoup a draft asset, because let's be honest here, you don't really need another wide receiver to replace Juju on this team. If somebody's willing to give you like a 2022 first for Juju in a second, like I would do that instantly, especially in an 8-team league. You're guaranteed a top 8 pick. Like, yes, instantly, please.
Yep, totally agree.
So overall, we can move on to the next team. That's going to be from Brian Harris, a 10-team PPR Superflex league. So you can take it away with the roster here.
Yeah, so he has Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford as his main quarterbacks. Also has Mac Jones and Jameis Winston on the bench. He's got Dalvin Cook, J.K. Dobbins, James Robinson, Travis Etienne, and then some other running backs there. He got Kenny Golladay, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark, Rashad Bateman, Michael Gallup, and some other wide receivers. Kyle Pitts at tight end with O.J. Howard, and doesn't look like he has his first-round pick in his next 2 drafts or his second-round pick in 2022. So a little weak on draft capital, obviously, but he wants to know what we think of this trade. And unfortunately for him, I don't really like this trade. So he traded 2 first-round picks, his 2022 first, his 2023 first, and his 2022 second. So some pretty significant draft capital. And he traded George Kittle, Amari Rodgers, and James Conner, fine, whatever. They're like throw-ins. But all you got out of that was Travis Etienne and Rashad Bateman. Look, I love those 2 players. Like, you're not going to find too many people higher on Travis Etienne and Rashad Bateman. I think he got fleeced.
Yeah, this is probably about a first too much that you gave up, in my opinion. Like, if it was the first, the second Kittle, and those 2 young or not young piece because John Connor's not young, but the first Kittle, the second Amari Rodgers and Connor for Etienne and Bateman, I could probably stomach that.
I still think you probably lose that trade though, even in that situation. Yeah. I think Kittle in a first is probably about what you're looking at for this value of this deal. For at least Kittle first and a second.
Yeah, and then, like, again, if you wanted to add like James Conner to that, it's a win now team, or like you're rebuilding, whatever. Okay, cool. But yeah, I don't like this move.
Yeah, like those 2 guys got to be studs for this to work out in your favor, right? Like Etienne has to be Aaron Jones, and Bateman has to be AJ Brown.
Yeah, literally though. And if that happens, hey, maybe you won. But yeah, at this point,
that's a lot to bet on those guys. As much as I love those 2 players.
Yeah, absolutely. And he doesn't have the picks to really recoup in 2022 and 2023 now. So
he says, where do I go? I mean, your team is squarely in win now mode. Like, if you look at your assets, you got Dalvin Cook, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got Matthew Stafford, you got Kenny Golladay, Cooper Kupp. Like, you got to win.
You have to win.
The window that you're in. So I would say you got to compete the next 2 years while you don't have your first round pick. Make sure those firsts are late that you're giving up. And following the 2023 season, or maybe you look at your team, maybe Galladay's not really useful anymore, and Rodgers maybe retired, or he's on the back half of his career. Then at that point, you probably make some moves to rebuild.
Yep, I agree with that. So we can get on to the next team. That's going to be from Brock Glaser, a 12-team, full point PPR, no super flexing. So it's a one quarterback. So the description, he says he inherited a really bad team. So last summer he decided to tank, made a lot of moves, but to sum it up, traded Lamar, Zeke, some older vets, 2 seconds, and Swift, who he wish he had kept, for basically every player I currently have other than Pittman and Jefferson, who I drafted. So guess you see the team though. Ryan, Jones, and some filler quarterbacks. Saquon, Chase Edmonds, and some filler running backs. Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton, DJ Chark, Pittman, Campbell, Mims, Van Jefferson, and some fillers. Tight end, you got Irv Smith Jr. and some others on the team. So initially, what are your thoughts on what he has here? Where can he go from there?
Yeah, so in a rebuilding effort, I don't mind actually going out and acquiring Saquon, because I think, we could very well be looking at a guy that his value is at the lowest point it's ever going to be. At the same time, though, I wish he had a little bit more young quarterbacks, or like his quarterbacks. They're both win now quarterbacks in my opinion. Even though Daniel Jones is a young guy, I still don't think he's going to be a very long-term starting quarterback in the NFL. So I would look to acquire some young quarterbacks. Obviously, it's a one quarterback league, so it's not like a huge deal that you don't have a young quarterback at this point in time. It's not really hard to go out and acquire one, but I would try and get a cornerstone young quarterback like a Trey Lance or Justin Fields, or Trevor Lawrence, or something like that.
Yep, absolutely agree. So he also asked what he should do with these picks too as well. Initially here it says here, let me just get back to it. Sorry, I scrolled off. He traded, I think, is this him trading the 102 for Saquon straight up?
Yeah, that's what he says. Said he traded the 102 for Saquon straight up. I think that's a great trade.
Great deal.
Easily take Saquon over the 102.
Absolutely. 101, he says he's going for Harris. I would agree in this instance. You need some running back depth, and Harris is absolutely worthy of that pick. 105, he's going for Pitts. Again, easy choice. If Pitts somehow falls to you at 105, absolute steal. If he's gone, unsure what you do. I think that pick is basically pigeonholed for either Travis Etienne or Javonte Williams.
Could also be a pick that you trade as well.
That could be the case as well. So overall, take Pitts if he's there. If he's not there, you can either take Etienne, Williams, or potentially deal the pick if someone's willing to give you a godfather.
Yep.
110, hoping for Carter, Sermon, Elijah Moore. I'd put Elijah Moore at top of that list personally.
Yeah, and potentially Bateman too if he's there as well. I would put both of those guys at the top of that list. That 110 pick should probably, I would get it in your mind that it's going to be a wide receiver, because generally speaking, the 110 is probably appropriate value for Sermon and Carter in a one quarterback league, but I think somebody's going to reach on those guys. They're going to take them because they're running backs, and you're going to get better value at wide receiver.
And even if that's the case, any of those top 5 wide receivers, you're talking about Chase, you're talking about Smith, you're talking about Waddle, Bateman, and Elijah Moore, I would take any of them over the running backs in this class personally.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
205, really not sure, quarterback or wide receiver. Again, best player available.
That's probably the QB. I think I would aim for a quarterback in that one, because you could probably get one of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, or Zach Wilson or Trey Lance with that pick. Whatever one you value the most. For me, it's Trey Lance, then Trevor Lawrence, then Zach Wilson, then Justin Fields. Danny just has Wilson and Fields flopped. But I think you should be able to get a young quarterback with that 205.
For sure. 205 and 211. He's not really, 211 and he's not really sure what to do with these picks.
Yeah. So it looks like he has back-to-back picks, 211, 212, 301. I would suggest guys like De'Ami Brown, potentially, if he's there. If he's not there, then maybe look towards Nico Collins. Maybe Mac Jones is there too. You could always add him to your quarterback core. I think you got some flexibility with that. We did a bunch of rookie sleeper content if you want to go check that out.
We have a one quarterback mock on the channel that you can check out as well. But overall, at those picks, again, another option could be maybe a Pat Freiermuth if he's there, in one of those picks. I don't think that would be a bad selection whatsoever as well.
You can always trade those picks too.
Yeah.
People get excited about their late round sleeper rookies to go ahead and see if you can get a win now type asset like a Mike Davis or something for the 211.
Yep, I agree there. And he also outlines that he has 2 firsts in 2022, 1 first in 2023. So overall, that's how we would go with those picks. And looking at this team, yes, this is probably a rebuilding roster, but at the same time, you do have good young pieces to be able to add to the rebuild with those picks and the future that you have. So I think you're in a good spot here.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty quick retool for me
Yeah.
because you have Saquon, because you have Terry, because you have Ayuk, you have some like win now type of assets. You're going to be adding guys like Najee Harris, potentially Kyle Pitts to this team. Like you're going to be ready to compete in 2022, in my opinion. You'll probably won't compete this year, but next year you should be ready to compete. So that's probably the first winning window I'd look to go to. And you have 2 firsts next year too. So
yeah, like he mentions he has 4 elite teams in his league, but if you add with those picks in 2022, I do think this could be a team that you have Saquon and Najee Harris as your cornerstone running backs. You have Terry McLaurin, Ayuk, let's say
Elijah Moore, Bateman, whatever.
Yeah, like as your wide receivers, like you're in a really good spot by then for your team to really compete. And who knows if that 205 pick you add a Lance, a Justin Fields, a Trevor Lawrence to that mix, I think you're in a really good spot.
Yep.
So overall, anything else you want to add, or should we conclude this episode of Dynasty Decisions?
No, we can close this one out. So if you guys did receive any value from this, you can support the channel. You can support us by going to underdogfantasy.com, depositing for your first time using promo code FSC, minimum $10 deposit. You'll get a $25 match back, which is basically a free entry into Best Ball Mania 2. You can win $1 million if you win that tournament, and we have plenty of best ball content on the channel to help you do that. And if you guys did enjoy this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. We see 60% of you that are watching our videos that are not subscribed to the channel. We're hoping to get to 5,000 subscribers as quick as possible. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so.
Yep, absolutely. You're expecting a big August, so make sure you're getting on the train of the FSC boys. So anyways, we'll see you tomorrow for the doubleheader of Dynasty Decisions. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.
Why you need the money?